Hello, and welcome to episode 6 of my Game Dev Adventure series. So, I've been working on a game where you play as a mosquito, and I've already added flying, walking on walls, I've added creatures roaming in the environment, specifically humans. So far, I've added blood spots that you can kind of go and you can suck blood from. And I'm sort of at the point where I'm building up to what I think is my minimum viable game, effectively, because I want to play test towards the end of the month. So in this last week, I was working on a few things that I think are going to be important to that final product. I wasn't as productive as I wanted to be, but I think I've still made some important progress. So I'll just get right into it. So the first and I think most crucial thing that I've added is a stamina system. So before, when you would fly, you would just start consuming blood, which is this bottom bar resource straight away. And while I think that's an interesting mechanic, and I still have it somewhat, when you're consuming your blood, which is kind of your main like victory resource, when you're consuming that straight away, it de-incentivizes flying. And so I want to make it such that you still are encouraged to fly, like you still have a way to fly. So now you can see that there's this bar that shows up beneath the mosquito, and that is your limited stamina. So basically, while you're when you start flying, you've got the stamina system, and it's pretty limited. So once that gets chewed up, then you start consuming your blood. So there still needs to be some intentional choices, and I think it makes it so that you are able to fly, you're able to enjoy the flying mechanics, but you still need to be careful about how you're managing it. So I'm pleased with how that went. And then, yeah, I'll just do some engorging, get some blood. Before, the blood spots were giving you a lot of blood. I've reduced that amount as well so that you have to be more intentional. And also because now there's the stamina system in place, you aren't going to be consuming blood as often or as readily. So I think it's good to be able to. Oh dear. Okay, we've got we've got some interesting collisions going on. I also added a cat to the game, and it seems like the cat capsule collider is doing something interesting with the human capsule collider. I'll need to resolve that later. Let's restart this for now because it seems like they are in an infinite loop of floating upwards. So yeah, we've got stamina. One other thing that I've done before, when you're on a human, it will still, like your mosquito, you can see it's kind of sliding around a little bit. That's something that I'm not super sure how to resolve yet, but I made it at least so that when you're engorged, all of the animations pause and then they will continue, so that like when you're engorged, when you're locked into somebody, you're not going to be sliding around. And I think that just, it feels better, and makes it so that there's not some weird janky floating when you're actually biting into somebody. I also mentioned that I added this patrolling cat. There's a reason for that. It's not just because I want there to be a cat in the game. I do want there to be like creature variety, but I also want there to be a reason for each one of them to be in the game. So obviously, one reason is to have another resource for getting blood. But the cats, I think, can be a threat to a mosquito. Humans also will be a threat once I add AI perception and like attacks that they can make. But with the cat, I want it to be a way to de-incentivize the player from hitting the ground. I want the ground to be like a space that you're not actually able to be in. So I've got this warning indicator that comes up, and right now it's not doing anything. The cat isn't being summoned. It's just going to start doing damage to the mosquito once the timer zeroes out. So that's one way to discourage somebody from being on the ground. That's kind of like the cheap way. But what I want to happen eventually is once that timer goes down, it will just bring the cat over, and the cat will be able to instantly kill you or something along those lines. And that's just because I want the floor not really to be a viable option for the player. I want them to be encouraged to fly and to be smart about where they're flying and when. So yeah, that's pretty much all I did this week. It doesn't look like a lot, but I was also doing a lot of research into AI and perception. and behavior trees. Behavior trees are how Unreal Engine handles AI sequences. So this is an example of one here for the human. Right now, it's just a very basic sequence where it will move to a random location, wait a few seconds, plus or minus, and then do that again. And so eventually I'm going to be adding a lot more complex logic so that there's one setup where you are, where the human is kind of in patrol mode or just roaming mode. And then there's another series of actions that it will take once it is aware of the mosquito. And so that's what I'm going to be working on this week, along with hopefully working on the blood sucking minigame, which I've been talking about for a while, but I haven't really been sure how to handle it. And so I'm going to, I think, get some help from people in the Discord and figure out how I should approach that. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.